Welcome to this webinar tonight on interviews and interview skills. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so can everybody see the first slide? Interview skills. So once again, I'm Camille Dumont, the director of the Center for Career and Professional Development at Post University. I've listed my email in case you would like to reach out to me. And again, this is being recorded, so it will be available for you and your reference on our CCPD website. So, interview skills. So hopefully you'll find yourself in a position where you've reached out to somebody, you have sent your resume, you've sent your cover letter, they like what they see, and they're excited and they want to meet you, and they reach out to you and they schedule an interview. Well, it's not just so simple as showing up and meeting with the person. There's some things that you need to do in advance, and I'd like to talk to you about that tonight. One of the most important things that you should be doing as you get ready for an interview is research. First, you want to start off by researching yourself. You might think, well, that sounds kind of weird. Not really, though. You really want to be sure that you are confident in communicating the skills that you have. So be confident in your summary of skills and relevant qualifications. You want to be sure that you know your top 3 strengths that are related to the job that you're going to be interviewing for. And you want to be clear on how you can meet the employer needs and add value. Remember, the interview is really about selling yourself and what you can do for the employer. And you are in a position where they want to hear from you how you can do that. It's important that you're able to communicate that to the potential employer and convince them that you are the right person for that job. You want to know all about the position as much as you possibly can. So research the position that you're going to be interviewing for. Have a clear understanding of the role. You also want to research the employer. What is the company about? Who are you interviewing with? Showcase your interest by showing how aware you are of what they do, who their competitors are, even who the CEO is, the mission. Showing that you've done all this research really elevates you above any competition and shows your interest and your ability to really go out of your way. Research the industry. You want to be aware of the industry and the trends and information that showcases your knowledge. Again, this is elevating you above the rest potentially and really showing an interest. Okay, let's talk about what to bring. What should you be bringing to your interview? Well, first and foremost, you should be sure to have some sort of a portfolio or something to carry your resume, paper, and pen with you. Oftentimes, you can find a nice, inexpensive faux leather folder at Target or even on Amazon. And that's a nice thing to carry, and it's an investment for you to bring with you when you go on interviews or even when you start your job. So what you should be bringing with you is your portfolio, and include in there, obviously, a paper, a pen. You want to bring the job description with you. Perhaps this is something you want to review while you're waiting to ensure that you really understand what the job is all about. Resume, obviously you want to bring copies of your resume, and I do encourage you to print out your resume on resume paper. What is resume paper? Resume paper is a really good quality paper, heavier than just printer paper. You can get it at any office supply store. And many office supply stores will actually print it for you. So if you bring your resume, you buy the resume paper, they'll print it for you on the resume paper. Same for references. If you have a list of references, you should set them up on a template. And by the way, we do have a webinar all about references. Thank you, Professor Nathanson, for that. And I encourage you to take a look at that to see a good way of setting up your references. And these you want to print out as well, a nice, your template, and you want to print it out on the resume paper. Be prepared with questions for the interviewer. Come prepared with that, have them written down, typed out, and include them in your portfolio. Maybe if you have some show and tell items, maybe you've done some publications, some writing samples, some projects that you're excited to share that you feel are relevant to the job and really showcase how you will be the best candidate. Bring those as well. Now, you want to think about preparing 3 to 5 short, relevant stories based upon your experience so that you can talk about them when you're asked what's known as a behavioral interview question. So these are questions that, for example, sound like, tell me about a time when you showed leadership skills, or tell me about a time tell me about your typical way of dealing with conflict. These are some examples of behavioral interview questions. The interviewer is looking for how you handle or have handled situations. So this is where you want to really be prepared and think about in advance your experiences and be prepared to answer these questions. And really the best way to answer behavioral interview questions like these is to use the STAR method. The STAR method helps you stay concise and thorough in your response. So you'll be discussing the situation, filling in the details of the specific event or experience that you had. What was the task? And you'll explain your responsibility in that situation. And then you'll discuss or describe the action and how you accomplish the task. And finally, you'll discuss the result and state the impact of your actions. Using this method, again, will keep it clear and concise and thorough and will avoid you going on tangents or going too long or too short in your responses to behavioral interview questions. So think about your experiences and be familiar with them to tell your story. Now, you want to practice. You want to practice your answers to the most common interview questions. Some of them are listed here. Tell me about yourself. This is a great way to use your elevator pitch that keeps it short and concise and thorough. Think about some of these questions. You can certainly research them online and research what are some of the best ways to answer them and why is the potential employer asking you these questions? What are they trying to understand from you? They really want to know how you're going to behave in the job and are you a fit? So this is why they're asking you these questions. Now, no two interviews are identical. They're always unique and you really never know what you're going to be asked, but it's always important to at least be prepared for those most common interview questions, because even if they don't ask you them in these exact ways, it might be some manner that's similar so that you are familiar with how to best answer these questions. And you want to practice, try looking in a mirror, try to even consider recording yourself or ask a friend to help you. You can also come into CCPD, or you can give us a call. And if you're an online student, we're happy to do it via Teams. We have a virtual method to help you do a mock interview. Or if you're on campus or local, you can come into CCPD, and we're more than happy to do some mock interviews with you. But the more you practice, the less nervous you'll be. You'll never really take away all of that nervousness of an interview, but the more you practice, the less nervous you will be because you'll feel that much more prepared. Arrive on time. On time means 10 minutes early, either in person or online. If your interview is an online interview, make sure the link works well in advance of the interview. So if they're sending you a meeting link, test it several days in advance. You want to be sure it works. The last thing you want to do is reach out to the person when you're supposed to be having the interview, letting them know something doesn't work. That's the last thing you want to do. If you're in person, make sure you know how to get to the location and allow for plenty of travel time, whether you're taking public transportation or you're driving. A lot of times, you'll find that an interview might be in a building that has many floors or many different buildings in the complex, and you want to be sure that you know exactly where you're going. So test it out in advance if you can. If you're local and not too far, take a drive there or travel by public transportation to ensure that you know how to get there and allow yourself plenty of time. The last thing you want to do is be just on time or late. It really does not give you a chance to breathe, relax, think about what you're doing, think about what you're saying, think about how much you've practiced. You want to arrive with plenty of time to relax. Finally, when it's time to meet the person that you're going to be interviewing with, you want to be sure that you greet them properly and professionally. Have a strong and confident handshake. If you're not sure if you do or not, practice with somebody, practice with a friend. Come into CCPD if you're local. We're more than happy to help you. But remember, this is a first impression, and it's a very important part process. More preparation. If you're online, again, test your equipment. Make sure that your computer is working. Make sure that it's charged, that it's plugged in, that you have proper Wi-Fi, and that it's strong, and you don't want to have the wrong type of lighting. Test out your lighting well in advance of your online interview. When you're in the interview, look at the camera. Try to avoid looking at the person, but rather look at the camera when you're answering the questions or listening to the person. Make sure you have proper background, plain, professional, nothing messy. You want it to appear very professional. If you're having a phone interview, you want it to be sure your phone is completely charged. You also, again, want to be sure that you have a good signal and that there's no chance for the call being dropped. You also want to ensure that everything is quiet in the background and there are no distractions. When you're on the phone, they don't have the luxury of seeing you and your face and your energy, so you want to be sure that you're smiling when you're speaking, be energetic, let them hear your excitement about the role and the opportunity in your voice. And one of the most important things is professional attire. Whether you are an online interview or in person, you want to be sure that your attire is professional. You know, I heard a story recently about a student who had an interview, and he was using a room that in his house that had lighting that was a sensor. So if he was not moving, the lighting went off. And he was dressed very professionally from the waist up. From the waist down, he was simply wearing jogging shorts. And sure enough, when he was in the interview, there was the sensor that was sensing no movement, and so the lights went off. And so he had to get up and turn the lights on. And of course, he forgot about his attire. And so that was unfortunate because they were able to see that he did not have the full professional attire on. So go for it. Dress professionally, top to bottom, regardless of if you're in an online interview or if you're in person. Be sure that you have professional attire, clothing not too tight, not too loose, not too much in the way of jewelry or perfume. Professional is the key. You come to the end of the interview. What do you do? Well, you want to be sure that you have an opportunity to ask those questions that you've prepared in advance. Now, maybe those questions have been answered already. Then you should have some others that would come to mind based upon the conversation that you have. Never find yourself in a situation where you say you don't have any questions. You want to show that you're interested. You want to show that you are inquisitive and have some critical thinking. Prepare a closing statement. This is probably one of the most important parts of the interview in that it gives you an opportunity to say things about yourself and share things about your skills that perhaps you didn't have a chance to based upon the questions that were asked. So this is a really great time to make that connection, to really kind of hit it out of the park and hit it home as to how you really connect to the job and how your skills really make you the best candidate. Establish next steps. If the potential employer has not discussed with you what the next steps are, you can certainly ask about what are next steps. Will I hear from you in 2 weeks? And they should be able to tell you. Reiterate your interest and why you are a good fit. Be enthusiastic and thank them for their time and end with that strong handshake. Don't ever forget about the thank you email. This is essential. Why should you send a thank you email? Well, it's polite, it's professional, it emphasizes your interest, and it elevates you from those that don't send the thank you email. So imagine if you are on the same lines with another candidate and they're trying to decide between the two, but you're the one that sends the thank you email and they don't. Perhaps that could be the trigger that really sets you apart and gets you the job. Immediately after the interview, when you could get to a private place, your car, your public transportation, a bench outside the building, or if it's an online interview, when things have, when you've said goodbye, jot down notes about the conversation while it is fresh in your mind. This will then allow you within 24 to 48 hours after the interview to send a thank you email that references parts of the conversation. Thank them for their time and reiterate your fit and your interest. And here I provided a thank you note template, and this is certainly an example, but if you need help with this in CCPD, we're more than happy to assist you. You can reach out to us via email, you could come in for a visit, and we're more than happy to guide you in writing that thank you email and even editing it for you. And finally, keep calm and keep networking. You got through the interview, you've done your thank you note, congratulations, but you should keep networking. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket and count on that. While I'm sure that you've given your best effort and you've left a great impression, you just don't know. So in the meantime, while you're waiting, keep networking, keep looking for those other opportunities. And you never know what can arise. So that's the end of my presentation. I'd like to open it up for questions that you might have. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And I am happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I see that Tony P. has his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Camille. I really appreciate you giving us the opportunity to ask questions. There was a question that I had when you were talking about the in-person and online interviews being there 10 minutes early. Now, I do work in talent acquisitions, but that's not why I'm in this. I'm in this to make sure that I'm keeping myself up to date because I'm doing a career pivot right now, stepping away from the HRTA side and getting back into maintenance management. And I just want to be able to present myself and being able to confidently do that job after I've been doing this for a while. But part of what I deal with is handing over candidates to hiring managers and making sure I prepare them. So first, I want to say the STAR thing is awesome. It's something actually I push out to candidates to get them prepared. So that's really awesome. The second thing is I do get feedback from hiring managers sometimes that say when the candidate jumps in too early on the online, because everything we do is online, that they feel like they're rushing them. And I know that's kind of an irrational thought process, but they should be thankful that somebody's being there a little bit early. I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on should anyone who's going through an interview who's doing it online, should they be on and waiting for them to join 10 minutes early, or should that be the point where they're testing and making sure they reach out to whoever provided them that link if in case that it doesn't work right away?
Yeah, that's a great question. I appreciate your sharing all of your really wonderful experience. I don't recommend that they do the testing that day. I recommend ideally that they do the testing in advance just to make sure everything is working. As far as arriving to an online interview 10 minutes early, a candidate can certainly do that. That doesn't mean that the person interviewing them has to join at that time. I have teams at work, and I've conducted interviews, and I've had candidates arrive early. And if I'm not prepared to take them early, I allow them to wait, and typically that's fine. They're there early just to be sure that everything's working anyway. And I don't think that there's that expectation that somebody arrives early as well to start the interview early. So I think it's better to be early rather than late. So if somebody's waiting 10 minutes online, I don't have a problem with that.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you so much for clearing that up.
Okay, thanks for the question. And I see another hand. Is it, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but I'm going to say that the last name is Torres.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nalise, but you can call me Nally.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think that you have shared some amazing tips. I've been fortunate enough to do internal hiring for my company. My question actually comes somewhat piggybacking off my previous question, Tony. What advice can you give for when we're pivoting in our careers? How would you say we can better highlight our transferable skills in an industry where maybe we don't have the direct experience?
That's a very good question. It might be for that could be a whole other webinar, but I would say certainly in your summary, you can start to talk about your goals and what you're interested in pivoting or transitioning to. And then certainly, as you said, highlighting those transferable skills that really showcase how you can connect to the industry that you're looking to pivot to. I'm also going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to reach out to Dr. Blair and Instructor Nathanson to see if they have anything to add in their expertise.
Funny because I was going to say that Nally, you go by?
Yes.
I was going to say that you actually factored your answer into your question, which is to look for those transferable skills that you presently have that you can bring to the next job. And probably my biggest cheat, and I know I keep ringing the bell all the time about this, is to look at that job description, go back to the job description and see those kinds of things that you might already have that you hadn't really thought about from another field, because no matter where you go, where you move to, there are always going to be things from one job that you can bring to the next. I mean, it doesn't matter. You could be a greeter at Walmart. You know what? You have customer service experience you're bringing to the next opportunity. You could be working in an accounts payable department, and you could have experience in project management when you had particular projects to handle with all the different branches that came in, and you had to work with an auditor doing a big audit kind of a thing. So no matter what, you need to pull from your previous experiences and create alignment. Use the job description kind of as your template, as your guide, and you can do that ahead of time before you get to the interview. So you're going to know what to say, those things to emphasize, because in the end, the recruiter wants to fill the position. They don't want to have to look at 25 people. So the best job you can do of selling yourself with creating that clear alignment between what you bring to the table for the employer and how they can plug you in, that's going to give you the highest score, the highest rating in terms of your interview. And it's going to make it so that recruiter or manager, hiring manager, doesn't need to look elsewhere, that you've filled the bill for that person. That's kind of your goal. So that job description is really critical in regards to the cover letter, in regards to emphasis in your resume, and most definitely once you get that actual interview, to be able to sell yourself. Remember, it's not about you when you're in the interview. It's all about what you can do for that employer and what you bring to the table to fulfill their requirements.
Thank you,
done.
Dr. Blair. And I see Professor
yes.
Nathanson hands is up, so please go right ahead.
Yes, and I apologize, Camille. I always forget that my camera doesn't work in the actual classroom, so I've been doing it from my phone, which is working fine, but the camera issue is not helping me here. So I apologize to everybody. I couldn't agree with Dr. Blair more about those relatable experiences. I'll just add one quick thing because I think she did a great job, but that would just be, remember the why. So there's always a why behind the transition, and being able to relate that why to your experience set, and then also how you will contribute those behaviors to this new culture or this new environment is going to be very authentic. And I also think that it helps with the storytelling piece. You know, my students that are in here, they'll probably be able to tell you, you got to be able to tell a story. You have to be memorable. So it's not so much as your behavior and the outcome, but what was memorable about that experience for the interviewer. And if that interviewer can remember that story or that experience, it's not going to necessarily matter if it was at Walmart or in a back office, right? It's going to matter what those behaviors were. So I think that is a phenomenal approach. While I have you, I did have my hand up before. I'd love for you to talk to Camille about how to really best position yourself in that question piece. So my students and I talk about the best question you can ask on an interview, and that being the one that you want the answer to, right? We have a lot of fun talking about like, oh no, it's this, oh no, it's this, but it's really about doing that research and knowing what you want to know. But could you just spend a couple of minutes talking about how many questions, what that context should really look like, and really frame that up?
Sure, thank you. So I would recommend at least 2 or 3 questions at the most. And you really want them to showcase your interest in the job. You want to showcase how you have done your research and indicate your interest along with somehow connecting the skills that you have and showing your understanding of the trends in the industry, showcasing your understanding of the company, and showcasing your understanding of the culture somehow, some way in those questions. But they need to be genuine and authentic. They can't just be asked for the sake of asking questions. They really have to be authentic to you, to your skills, and all of the things that I just mentioned. So it takes some time. It takes some preparation. I'd love to give Dr. Blair a chance to answer that question as well. I think she has some contributions for that.
I was thinking about it, and I would probably go to my favorite go-to person, who's Madeline Mann. I love this woman. She's online. She does wonderful videos, and she has like these 6, 7, 8 minute spots and she would really cover that. But I think the why, I think, it's what you both said, things that you really want to know about, and your research of the company and of the position should help to guide you. And they should be authentic and realistic questions. It's hard to come up with just like a general formula to do that. I would need to know more about the job itself, about the company, because there's so many different kinds of things. I might like to work with international folks. Is the company, what are your plans about going global? Or I've seen that you've gone global, and I'm really interested in being able to work with the different branches. Would you see this position being integrated with international folks? Because I really enjoy that. I mean, that would be something for me personally, because I really enjoy working with people of different cultures. Or I might ask about culture in general. Can you tell me a little bit about the company culture? Or, gee, could I speak with a couple of who might be my potential colleagues and just have a quick meet and greet here? I once asked that question. I was in an interview and I was walking down the hall and I saw a couple people, and I asked the interviewer in the end, might I speak with a couple potential colleagues? And the person said no. And I was walking by, I kind of had, I was like seeing head shaking from these people walking by, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is not the kind of a place I want to work. I was getting clear vibes that she didn't want to let me speak with a couple of potential colleagues, and the colleagues are saying like, no, 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 you don't want to work here. You don't want to work here. So I think you need to be really observant in that face-to-face setting, and in the online setting too. You never know. You might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different interviewers, and they're coming at you like this. You kind of need to prepare for everything. But getting back to your question about the why, I think it's most important to do your research, what the position is, how you see what your fit is, and then what do you really want from the job? That's what you need to ask about. It needs to be genuine.
Thank you, and I appreciate we have some really great comments in the chat from Tony Pounds, and he's given some really great tips in there. So I encourage everybody to take a look at those and read them. I appreciate your contribution, Tony. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Professor Nathanson.
That's totally my fault. I'm a talker. I just wanted to say I couldn't agree with you more about being able to pick up on, if you're fortunate enough to have an in-person interview, who's walking through the lobby? Are they smiling? Do they ask if you need any help? How friendly is the culture? Because it really is, that interview is your interview of the company as well. How the recruiter puts on their face and how they're the face of that firm may inevitably tell you, I don't really want to work here. This might not be a fit for me either. So I couldn't agree with your points more. That was great. Thank you both very much.
Thank you. These are great questions. Anyone else? Okay. Well, I'd really like to thank everybody for joining. I'd like to remind you that this session will be available to watch. Again, it's housed in our CCPD website as well as the YouTube channel, along with all of our other series of webinars. We look forward to adding to the vault, as I like to call it, next year. And we hope that you found this valuable. I can't thank my wonderful faculty enough for participating, for attending, for bringing your students, and for contributing so much of your professionalism. To answer your question, Tony, there is not a CCPD newsletter yet, but we are working on it as we build the department. And you can find the website. It's post.edu/ccpd. That is actually Quad Jobs. We don't use that anymore, but that is the link to CCPD. As I said, we're growing the department and changing some things and eliminating some things and adding some things. And Quad Jobs is one of those things that we will be eliminating. But the good news is that we're looking forward to getting some job platforms very, very soon. So stay tuned for that. I'll be excited to share that with you probably in another webinar. So thank you, everybody. I hope that you have a wonderful night. And please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I will put my email in the chat in case any of you have any questions or if I could help you with anything. But thank you for coming.